Austin!
Yeah.
Man, it's been a while, it feels like, since we did one of these.
Oh, it has.
We took a week off, except you all did not take a week off. We had episodes. We had recorded 2. We had a one in the can, as they say in the biz. But coming back to it today, I just thought, like, man, you about ready to be done with this stuff?
Yeah.
Me too. Let's quit this. All right,
We'll
everybody.
get
We'll see you.
yeah. So yeah, we're gonna implement those like AI podcast things they have, where you can just input like an article and it does a like an AI podcast reading of the article discussing it. We'll just do that.
Yeah, it'll be every bit as good as us. All right, see you guys. Bye. No, we haven't made any money yet. We're going to keep going until we make some money. I'm Shane. That's Austin. It's 40K Fanatics Podcast. Last week we had a new special guest on, the homie Dallas, and we tried to fix 40K. And the week before that, we gave our best and worst hopes for 11th edition, and quite a few of you appeared to have enjoyed that. And in that vein, we're going to open up the Vox channel. We skipped it last week because we would have had just double Vox channel, but now we actually have double Vox channel. And I'm going to read you some comments. This first comment comes from Jason Trump, frequent contributor. These comments come from YouTube. You can comment on YouTube or Spotify. Those are the places we take them from. You can talk to us in our Discord, 40K Fanatics Discord. Austin, where can they find the link to that, and what does it cost them?
You can find that link in all descriptions of our videos, sometimes posted in the comments section, and it costs you no money.
No money?
No money.
How the heck are we going to make any money with charging no money?
I have no idea.
I haven't thought this through very well, have I? Well, anyway, Jason Trump says, I enjoyed the way you all did the wish list. Also, comments for the YouTube gods. Jason Trump gets it. He knows what YouTube likes. YouTube likes interaction. So whether you guys agree or disagree, we will read your comments either way. There have been plenty opposing comments read on this here podcast. You can't say that we don't take on all comers. Dragon DJ Reviews, I think he too is in the Discord. He says, this is back on the 10th and the 11th edition wish list episode. We talked about terrain a little bit. He says, in regards to terrain, I printed out a pyramid that can be configured in different ways, and we used it for all of the terrain in a 40K match at our local game store. It was pretty cool. There are a lot of great designs out there. I'm currently in the process of printing out canyon terrain to use in both AOS and 40K. The thing with the terrain is the terrain exists. There are different types, and you can use them, and you can forget about those obnoxious layouts that are so precisely measured and how they pair up with the match play pack, which, by the way, do not let me forget to comment on the match play pack. I am mad at it. It got an update. There's been a balanced data slate. We could talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about it. I don't know. But per Dragon DJ reviews, I wonder what he reviews. Comment, you guys can make your terrain however you want it, and I encourage you to. At my house, in my gaming table, I still use the big old tall L-shaped ruin things that you can make squares out of, or rectangles or whatever. So they sort of do what the new stuff does, but it also looks better like the old ones, rather than having all those tiny little rectangle foundations that you use to determine line of sight blocking and whatnot. And it's never caused an issue. That's the other thing. It's always pretty obvious. And there's doors and windows that you can use or not use. You just, it all makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Paradukes, frequent contributor. Now, this one's a little bit of a thread. This one is from the pod that featured the homie Dallas, where we talked about fixing 40K factions. It came out the day before the balanced data slate, and a couple of the people in the local chat were like, man, you guys waited too long, because now they fixed the factions. And I thought, oh, you guys are funny. You thought we were going to use little delicate touch, like a balanced data slate. No, no, no. We were taking armies apart and putting them back together and eliminating whole factions. We were moving
Oh yeah.
and shaking on that pod. Go check it out. Came out last week. Paraduke says, speaking as a Marines player, this had to do with like army composition. Okay. Speaking as a Marines player, I wholeheartedly agree that the current system could do with a rework. I'd love it if each non compliant chapter had their own detachments and points costs, and ideally their own army rules too. I'm getting fed up with core units getting nerfed because they're too good in a non compliant detachment, or compliant detachments getting nerfed because of the non compliant units. I think other armies need more urgent attention, but fingers crossed for 11th edition. And then this started a discussion, which I love.
Oh yeah.
Brandon Giordano says, opposite problem. I'm getting sick of paying for the sins of compliant chapters. I'm a Dark Angels player, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that we are not responsible for any nerfs to Space Marine units. And then one more comes in. Calimver1 says, also, as a Space Wolves player, having half my codex not working on generic Marines does not make me want to play those units, and I also don't want to pay for how strong certain Space Wolves units are in generic detachments. Looking at you, TWC, which is Thunderwolf Chariots, I believe. So
I
this
think it's
is.
cavalry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Thunderwolf Cavalry.
They don't have dedicated chariots.
Didn't they used to have chariots?
There's Logan Grimnar who is on a Thunderwolf chariot,
I
but
see.
I'm like 90% sure they don't have generic chariots.
Okay. Well, the big takeaway is everybody's right in that situation where being able to the way that 10th edition has done Space Marines is all of them, but and then the sub chapters come out. It but then they use all the other units from the Space Marine book has caused a problem. And the way to fix the problem would be to print up another 4 or 5 pages of rules and let you have an intercessor squad. It can be a straight reprint if you want in the Space Wolves book, in the Dark Angels book, in the Blood Angels book, etc. Right?
Hmm.
And then have points for all of that stuff as it functions in the uh, in its own book. And not every book has to have everything, right? You could decide that, I don't know. I'm not a I'm not a loyalist player, but you could decide the Blood Angels don't have quite so many tanks, for instance, or
Hmm.
whatever. Or perhaps if if you've got if you're playing Dark Angels, then maybe you don't have regular old Terminators. I don't know. Because you've got your various specialized Terminators. That could be a thing. But it needs to be done more like the Agents of the Imperium book was done, where it has its own points for its own book,
Hmm.
so that you don't end up having this misuse. Um, adjust the points because of the way that it's being used in a Space Marine detachment, and now you've nerfed everybody's army who's actually trying to do the right thing and play a regular old Dark Angels list. I think that's a bit
Yeah.
poor. Then we move on. Oh, this is another from Jason Trump, but this is from the second pod. So this is from the one with Dallas. He says, something I learned by listening to the podcast and guest Dallas voice. I can now ID what I will call Arkansas twang, as homie Austin has the same twang. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountain, have lived outside of Pittsburgh and Yinzer. And then I commented on that. I said, I do wonder how our more distant listeners received those boys. Uh,
I have no accent. I don't know what he's talking about.
I know, neither does Dallas. It's crazy. Also, it occurred to me that the both of you are Texas cities.
Hmm.
So that's something for our European fans to ponder how that could happen. You know, it's funny because I don't think they have anybody walking around named Birmingham.
Uh, Maybe not. I don't know. You never know with some of these young families out there with naming their kids weird names.
You you think there's some you think there's some folks down on the coast in Exeter naming their kids Cheshire?
Possibly. You never know. Maybe a middle name.
Stephen Newcastle Rolfe.
Yeah, isn't that a nice name?
It is kind of nice. It sounds like old money, doesn't it? Newcastle.
Yeah.
They live in public housing. I'm playing. Over on the Spotify, we haven't forgot about you guys. Dave and Company, frequent contributor. A lot of these guys, I think, have joined the Discord, and we appreciate that. Be sure to share that Discord with everybody you know so that we can keep growing our little community, which is quite pleasant over on the Discord. If you're not pleasant, I'll boot you out of there. I don't even care. But so far, nobody's been booted because you all are good, simple, polite adults and stuff. Man, I don't know. David Company says, this is on the armies that need fixing. I prefaced all this with how Dallas is a sweaty, sweaty tryhard because he is our meta-focused contact, if you will. He says, you got me worried when you said meta and list building. So many others do that, it's a snooze fest for me. Luckily, this was fun in the usual 40K Fanatics way. Welcome to Dallas. I'd love to hear you on again, hopefully with Austin too. I played my Imperial Knights army in a league. I lost every single game for the reasons you described. Funny enough, I painted my AdMech to look like the Knights. Too bad they can't ally any AdMech. Oh, they can't ally and AdMech have sucked since ninth edition. I'd love to see Demon Engines too. Well, that's what we got for comments. Um, it's a lot of
I,
people agreeing with us.
yeah.
That feels strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the little comment tree we had going on.
Yeah, I like it when the people get discussing because that then makes me want to make new topics for the whole
Hmm.
pod. Um, if you want to submit topics, we'll take them from anywhere we can get them because we are tied. We labor under the yoke of content creation. Like, if you have a podcast that you know of that would like to have a guest, one of us would come on it because we got to make stuff. We can do a home and home. You feel me?
Hmm.
We go on theirs and they come on ours, and because everybody doing this stuff is in the same boat where we got to come up with new stuff to talk about for next week. And this week, we will continue to talk about stuff by opening up the Bitsbox. Open it up. The Bitsbox is the part of the show where we talk about what we've done in the miniature gaming hobby this week. Austin, what have you done? What have you done?
Well, I am looking over Planet of the Apes right now for our game coming up. That is the role playing game of the Planet of the Apes. It's kind of a mouthful of a title, but I appreciate they're continuing the title conventions of the Planet of the Apes movies into the role playing game. Been looking over the rules because Shane and I are going to play a little one-off in the role-playing game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I recently signed up for the Rock Lava tournament over down in Little Rock. This is an old world tournament, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that on the 27th, so next week, next Saturday.
Very nice, very nice. What do you think the median age of old world players will be at that tournament?
I think we're probably looking late 40s, 50s.
And that's with you skewing the number down, right?
Yeah, that's me being the outlier, bringing it all down.
I would like to come to that because I do like old world. I mean, I got so tilted the last time we played. However, sometimes it just be like that. And also, I don't think I would play goblins and fanatics 4 times in a row. Are you taking the goblins or are you taking dwarves? I
No, I'm
understand
taking
you
goblins.
goblins again.
Yeah,
Well,
we're goblins all the time.
we'll see if you have any friends by the end of that. I've been doing some hobbying. So, I had a local homie print me up a piece of spaceship. I know I've talked about it on the pod before, and it's supposed to be the sort of basically the flight stand for my Helldrake. Yes, that's right, everybody. In my Chaos Space Marines list, I am getting meta. I am going meta forward, meta focused, and gonna get the sweaty goodness. I'm building a Helldrake. That would be the aircraft, in case you guys don't know, because absolutely nobody is running one. It is not good, but it does look badass. So, um, it has not been without its challenges so far. I had to go to Hobby Lobby. I had to build up a big giant cork tower to then put my my spire upon. Had to glue all that together. It came in 5 pieces from the printer. Uh, Found myself some copper rod that I hope is going to be strong enough to hold the Helldrake aloft. There will be filling and drilling and drilling and filling. The thing is mostly built. There will be posing that has to happen, which is not so bad because the Helldrake is sort of a ball and socket kind of construction. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
part's going to go off fine. And then there's the entirety of painting it. The idea will be I'm going to take a little bit of lesson that I took from uh, my dragon from Old World, where he's kind of orange to black. I'm going to do a lot of airbrushing and some dry brushing to get that effect, so that his kind of core will look almost more alive, and then he'll be, Black Legion, black and gray and gold trim all down his wings and everywhere else. And I think that's going to look really good. And then he'll be up on top of this crashed ship. I think that'll look good. It'll be sticking out of the desert to match all the rest of the basing that I have in my Chaos Space Marine Army. And then I'll have a Helldrake to play with. And I imagine I'll have to read the aircraft rules to my opponent before we start, because absolutely none of them will remember how any of that works. He does have the hover ability. However, then he's basically a tank and not a very good one. So I plan to just fly him in across the battlefield every turn,
Mm-hmm.
like the Emperor intended. Well, no, I guess like Horus may have intended.
Yeah, he definitely intended that.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I took I played a game recently, so shout out to Mythic Forge, which is a friendly local game store in Pocahontas, Arkansas. Me and the homie Craig met up out there for a game, and they've got a really pretty store. It's not terribly well lit, but at the same time, that makes it feel very cozy. And they've got a number of different types of tables. They keep a few tables laid out in competitive terrain setups with the recommended missions listed on the tables. We did not play on one of those. We played an asymmetric mission on what is a D&D table, but it's a D&D table that's big enough to play 40K on. And so that was great. It looked great. They had a really good set of MDF terrain, I think, from probably Frontline Gaming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't quite as paintball course looking, even though it was a bit that way. But we were playing
Mm-hmm.
asymmetric, so it didn't feel that way. And my Black Legion managed to beat Craig's Black Legion. He had brought what he did is he made a list that allied absolutely everything you could possibly ally into 2,000 points. He had a knight, he had uh, noise marines, plague marines, berserkers, he had demons, he had like bloodletters and pink horrors and plague bearers, I believe. Yes, and and bloodletters. So it was like chaos soup,
Mm-hmm.
and mine was sort of. So I used my list that I used last time I played the homie Jeremy over at Gamers Haven, our usual friendly local game store, which is just a straight up Black Legion list with an appropriate amount of foot soldiers, transports, and tanks. And it's been really fun to play. It doesn't really do anything special. Uh, it does use both the Sorcerer and the Sorcerer and Terminator armor, who have been getting work done. I think those are a couple other units that you don't see in very many lists that are useful, more useful than maybe the the very upper echelons. No,
No.
no.
Huh.
Know, I say.
Oh. Hmm.
I'm sure they do know. There's probably just other options that are even more leveraged. But look, I was running out of points, and a couple of sorcerers fit. One of them gives everything that shoots at the unit that he hexes +1 AP, and that's not nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You could start tearing some stuff up with that. Do you have anything else you've done in the hobby this week?
I think that's it. Besides, I'm just working on some dwarves.
All right. Well, I have also been painting, not just building. I have very nearly finished my high elf mage on mount, and he looks really good. He's on a brown horse, and I've spent probably 4 days painting him. My painting has gotten very, very slow lately, but I think it's done that on purpose because I just like to do it. I like stretching out. I like trying hard. That's kind of been the that's kind of been the MO of my painting lately, and it is not fast, but it is quite good. And I don't really have any large units to paint at the moment. I have recently painted large units quickly, so we all know that it can't be fast and good. You have to pick one,
Mm-hmm.
or at least there's a cost associated usually. What is it?
Yeah.
It can't be fast, cheap, and good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's get on to our main topic. Close that Bitsbox, Austin.
Closing it. Boom.
If you want to comment on, see what we've been working on, or post your own projects, you may do so in our totally free to join Discord. Check out the link below. This week in our main topic, we are building a better Battle Shock. So, Battle Shock, morale phase, things of that nature, they are, they're a mainstay of all miniature war games. Not so much in
Mm-hmm.
skirmish games, I feel like, but in war games, you tend to have them. Uh, I think it was called Morale Phase for a long, long time in 40K, and then in 10th edition we got Battle Shock, which I kind of like a bit better, and I'll tell you some reasons why. And then Austin is going to beg, borrow, and steal from all of his favorite games to fix some of the problems that I will probably lay out here. So, first of all, what the heck is a morale phase? It is the idea that all of your guys are not just robots. They're not just Terminators walking across the wasteland shooting one another indiscriminately until everybody's dead. It reflects the humanity involved in the battle because if for the entire history of war, absolutely every single participant on the losing side was cut down on the field to a man, I don't know if people would even participate in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's ever even happened. The idea of no survivors whatsoever, but then also actively fighting, because that's the other part. So, in your morale phase, you deal with things like the possibility of retreat, because, oh my god, Dave's dead. We need to retreat. And then you can be cut down running away. That can happen here and there. But it just gives you that hint of realism. And then in 40K and in sci-fi, the morale phase began to evolve. Used to, Space Marines would run away. And someone must have looked up and said, well, that doesn't feel right. Or Tyranids would run away. And the idea of a retreating Tyranid probably does sound a bit funny. A retreating Necron, certainly, because they are sort of the T800s walking across the wasteland. And then the morale phase in ninth edition became, okay, you'll
It was
take a
eighth edition.
leadership test, and then if you fail, guys will just start to die. They'll disappear. They'll just evaporate. And that
Yes,
made
eighth edition.
was that eighth edition that started?
That was eighth edition.
Eighth edition. Good correction. So seventh edition, we were still running away.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and then we started evaporating, and I came into 40K at ninth edition, and I thought, well, that feels strange. Like, where did they go? What happened? Did they? It makes no sense. And so they got rid of that. And in 10th edition, I think they've come to a better idea, which is they just don't do everything. They're hunkered down, they're battle shocked. The losses have piled up and they've decided like even though we're here on this point, we're here in this trench, we are down below, we're not shooting anymore, we're thematically not shooting, I mean. We're stressed out and cannot complete our mission at this moment. Which I think is a little bit better because in these sort of apocalyptic sci-fi things where some of the combatants aren't even you know they're not people, it seems strange that they'd be like, we're now going to make an orderly retreat. But that's like my opinion, man. Now, the problems with Battleshock as it stands right now is that it sort of only comes up when it comes up. It doesn't feel like a very ever present representation of the humanity um, on the tabletop. But Austin, you've got better ways. How would you
Yeah,
build a better Battleshock?
well, I've always liked the idea from other games I've played how they deal with morale systems. Uh, One is the old world, the way they handle their morale system, and it's kind of goes back to how the games used to be run with the morale systems, to where, as you were mentioning, once you took so much in the way of casualties into a unit, you would then take your leadership test and compare the dice results to your leadership, and upon failing that check, the unit would then flee in a certain direction, uh, running away. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on your idea of these uh, kind of units in 40K not seemingly wanting. They don't appear to be the kind to flee battles, and I just want to put forth that it's not the idea of them going run away and like run around like a bunch of cowards or something. It's more for Space Marines. You could think of it more of like, okay, we've taken too many losses. Let's do and just do a little retreat back, fall back, get to a better position. Not necessarily that they're like we have to fall back because we're scared, but it's more like we're taking too much damage. We need to fall back to cover. It's kind of like that, and I think that makes a bit more sense than having some guys like Marines dying on a point for literally no reason when they could just fall back, get in better cover in order to repel the enemies of the Emperor.
Sure, I like that. I mean, in Old World, they do just run away with their hair on fire.
Yeah,
Um, I tell you what, this idea of fall back to cover is a very neat idea as you say it. And look,
yeah,
full disclosure, guys, we are not going to rewrite Battleshock word for word in this podcast. We're just spitballing ideas, things that you may look. If you're somebody who's playing a whole lot of games, try it out and see how it works, right? Uh, whether or not GW will ever pay any attention to it is kind of beside the point. I understand, or I am led to believe. Now, I've never actually met any myself, but I'm led to believe there are many people who play this game in their garage and they come up with all sorts of rules that are just the way they do it. And if you are any of those sort of people, you'd be a good candidate to try out some of these things. Now, I am loving that idea of okay, you've lost a bunch of dudes, you're on the point, you take the leadership, you fail the leadership, whatever it's triggered by, and now you're going to run away. But not run away with your hair on fire because you're heckin' space marines or orcs or tyranids or necrons. But it's more like we're going to fall back until we hit a piece of terrain, hit a piece of cover, possibly.
uh, make your leadership test.
Well, yeah, but see, I hate when they just run off the edge of the board. That part sucks because then it's like, well, your hair's on fire.
Yeah, uh, I want to say, now I've never played the earlier editions, but there could have been a rule to where if they break line of sight of the unit that they're fleeing from, it may have stopped them. If not, that's something that could be implemented if
Well,
you were to put cover between yourself and whatever you're fleeing.
yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking. Like, so you sort of retreat back to the next defensible point. That would be
Hmm.
cool because then it's like, okay, now they regroup. They're in here. They're fairly safe, and then you go back at it. And of
Yeah,
course,
and
you're
I
you're you're low on dudes now, so you're still going to be triggering these shocks subsequently on let's say further losses. So
yeah,
they're still not safe, but they're as safe as they can get.
yeah, and I like the idea of these leadership penalties inflicting this forced movement because it shakes the board state up as casualties take place instead of it just being, well, my chess pieces are going away, but I can still like push them forward. It kind of creates an ebb and flow with the battlefield where the game state is like constantly changing or could constantly change, and it's less kind of decided. I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of meta players might not like their dudes doing things that they're not explicitly inputting them to do.
yeah. So let's just point out a little flaw in the current battle shock system, which is just that. Um, it comes around to the battle shock step before scoring, and somebody's lost more than half of their units. You roll it, you fail it. Okay, they don't score, and
Yeah,
and then it's like, and I can't use stratagems. You can't use stratagems.
yeah.
Okay, big
So,
deal.
okay, it's like, okay, well, number one, this unit didn't necessarily need to be holding any objectives if it's battle shocked. Two, there's no stratagems for me to use on this unit potentially. So there's some units where if a unit becomes battle shock, there's literally no reason for me to care.
Right, and then they're still standing there. So the next turn
Yeah.
comes around, you take it again, or you spend a command point to auto pass, right? And it's like, okay, they
Hmm.
score again. They haven't moved. Nothing's necessarily happened to them. They take no penalty for when they're being shot at. So it's like they're battle shocked, but what does that actually mean? It means I don't know. It means they're laid on the ground with their hands covering their head. No, it doesn't because they can still move, still charge, still shoot. They just don't count for boots on the point, which is kind of a weird. It's an inelegant solution while also making more sense in my mind than the traditional morale phase type thing, which is, and now they run away with their hair on fire. And so here's the thing about the hair on fire, which I'm really enjoying as a phrase, which I hope that you can maybe have AI make a Space Marine with his hair on fire running away for the thumbnail. But uh, in Old World, there's like steps to this leadership thing. So you lose however many guys. There's a whole combat resolution. I believe it's this way in uh, 30K as well. And so that number, which can be quite large, becomes a modifier to the leadership number target. And then they start running away. And then you've got your rally opportunities. Except if you're, what is it, lower than half, then it's some penalty, lower than a quarter, then it's a penalty. And
Hmm.
it sort of becomes there's no way to stop them from just running to the hills and off the board in a way.
Yeah.
One Space Marine would would turn around and keep fighting. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the for 40K the sweet spot is right in between where you're right. I love the forced movement because it shakes things up. It gets guys where you didn't mean to have guys, which like you say the meta tryhards hate that because they're like, "No, the skill ceiling is in the movement." As if they're not standing
Hmm.
back there with a bunch of gun lines, not moving anything, right?
Yeah.
But that's a discussion for another day. Um, Because if we're being honest, the skill ceiling is in the charge and pile in movement in 10th edition. It's hardly in the, yeah, these guys go over here.
Hmm.
Against shooting armies, the entirety of the skill ceiling of movement is and I managed to fit 10 guys behind this one tiny ruin. So you can't
Yeah.
see them from any angle that you can get to. Like, okay. Do you feel like you did something? Because I don't know if you did. In
Yeah.
fact, I would have rather you've saved us 10 minutes and said, these guys are moving behind the thing, and you just get close enough.
Hmm.
I'm not going to edge shoot you. Anyway, um, so I like the idea that you move to some kind of terrain. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Do you think you should
Now I have
have? Do you, what else you got?
so another idea is I'm stealing also from Flames of War.
What is Flames of War? Nobody plays that.
Well, if you are under the age of 45, Flames of War is a 15 millimeter scale World War II game in which you can play kind of battalion level games with tanks and infantry and everything. Really small models, like tanks the size of Hot Wheels cars. It's a very fun game.
It is really
Uh,
good. I was playing
wish I
because
had people to play with.
right.
And uh, anyway, in that game, if a unit takes so many hits, I believe it's 8 hits in a turn, then they're forced to become pinned, and they have to basically go to ground. And I believe they're either unable to. I haven't played this in a while, but they're either unable to move, or I believe they take a movement penalty. But essentially, you kind of pin them down to where that unit can't move. And I feel
Yeah.
like the idea of something like this in 40K would be interesting, to where you can kind of like pin down a unit, which
Well,
is kind of a it's kind of the opposite of what we're going with the whole movement and everything. This is kind of like how I feel if we kept the same kind of battle shock, where your guys aren't necessarily getting any movement penalties or anything from being forced to move. If they just become battle shocked, this is an idea to where they can stay on the point, won't count, but they take a kind of a pinned state.
yeah. So the pinned is interesting because I bolt action has pinned as well, and it affects. You can end up with so many pin markers, and then if you get too many, uh, then your guys I think break. But those pin markers, I want to say, affect things like your to hit roll and stuff too, because it's the idea that there's this hail of gunfire continuous over you, and that is kind of making you sit lower and lower in your position until you're
Mhm.
until you're just absolutely hunkered down in a hole waiting on it to stop.
Yeah.
Whether it's stopped or not, because there becomes a psychological effect. Um, so we do have a bit of that pinned with regard to movement in 40K in things that what's it called? It's there's a Space Marine jump pack unit that does it. They've got big long guns, and if they hit you with a shot,
Oh,
then you're -2
I
to
know,
move.
I can't tell you what the name is, but they're like suppressors. I think that's literally their name, suppressors.
That's right, and the ability is that you are then suppressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it it's funny because if they're already on the point, which really, like, look, morale phase, battle shock, whatever we want to call it, its big time to shine is with regards to scoring. What units can and cannot score points in whatever type of game that you're playing, right? Um,
Hmm.
I suppose in the real traditional war games such as Old World, I want to say 30K does a bit of this. There is like a there is a whole entire morale system attached to after you've fought, whether you won or lost, get things give ground, things retreat, things are broken, things are not. Um, so everything sort of clashes and then breaks and clashes and breaks. I don't know. I don't think that. I think that is a bit too far out for 40K, and especially for if we just want to sort of repair this one chunk, this one phase of the game. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, things like the suppressing effect of pinned markers with regard to movement is if the guys are already on the point, well, you don't want them to move off anyway, and we're back to where we started. So I don't know if you'd want them to be any slower. I do like the idea of a couple of pin markers making you less good at shooting, because shooting is a it's a overvalued it's an overvalued aspect of the deadliness of the thing, right? Like nearly everything shoots so well that it is very, very effective. And it may be
Yeah,
cool if they were made less effective by being battle shocked, so that, you know, for instance, a battle shock tank, okay, it doesn't score any points for sitting on the objective, but it's still out there being a tank. And that's a problem.
yeah, that was something I was going to bring up. Is the idea that when you're pinned, you could take a -1 to either your melee hits or your shooting. That way, it balances out against either armies. If you're trying to go into melee with them, or if you're going to be uh, trying not to get shot by them, you could apply a -1 for both instances. So they're pinned on the ground. They won't be scoring objectives, and they're less effective in combat.
Yeah,
Uh, try to help out.
I like that. What do you think about so so now we've got them now we've got them less good at doing their combats, and we've got them running away once they're battle shocked, so running off the point. Who are they running from though in that case? Or should we have battle shocks triggered? We almost have to have battle shocks trigger at the end of the turn rather than the beginning, don't we?
Yeah.
So that everything knows what it's running from. I guess it doesn't make any difference, does it? New turn starts. These guys just got shot at by XYZ. Or, question, does the battle shock retreat? Can you decide which way you run? But you've just got to finish the move.
Uh,
Could you
I'm not
move
sure.
forward
I
in a
feel like that's getting into cheese territory, because if you have something like corn berserkers and they become battle shocked, and you go, okay, well, they're gonna get closer to the Tau infantry that just battle shocked them. It's like, oh, okay.
hmm. Well, like like I said, we are not going to get this fixed and perfect. But I'm thinking about, like, sometimes it can take 3 or 4 units shooting at something, and they may be surrounded to bring them down to half, right?
Mm,
But where this would be abused is you could have like a chaff unit, cultists, something like that, poxwalkers. They could be out there on the point, they could get shot, they could then get battle shocked, then they would be forced to move, and then they could move forward off the point. Because I like the idea that the point, which it could be anywhere on the battlefield, but mainly the point, is under such fire that y'all have to go somewhere. You can't stay here, right? Because of
yeah,
the way 40K works, you can be shot from your own deployment zone, and then that would theoretically send you forward toward the other enemies. And then it's like, well, what do we do? The last guy that shot is the one you have to run away from, or whatever. I think that there's some. It's not a perfect setup, is it? But then you'd
mm.
move those guys forward, and they'd be move blocking a little bit. But would you care? I don't know. In the case of the Corn Berserkers, you probably would care, because it's like, ooh, I don't want no parts of them. But then they're -1 to hit because they've got a pinned marker on them. So they're
I
much
think
less effective.
I think the way to do is just whatever triggered the battle shock, they have to move away from them. I mean, you can just write the rules like that and try to FAQ it later on when people try to get down to the nitty gritty of what does it mean to move away from the unit that triggered it. It's like, well, if you can see that unit and you're shot at, then you move directly away from them, just draw a straight line, uh, and attempt to move either directly away or to where cover is between both units in the shortest distance possible.
Oh, that sounds rough.
Well, here's what it is. Okay, it's
Yeah.
you take the 40K player and you shake them really hard and say, "Use your brain, use your brain."
That's true. That's true. Well, but you see what I'm saying about the sort of surrounded situation, which happens a lot because we've got deep strike and everything else. So you could have like you would end up having to attempt in your shooting to shoot in the correct order to trigger the battle shock at the right time, or else you could have these guys moving in the wrong direction, which would be obnoxious.
I mean, if you've got them surrounded and you trigger a battle shock, and they just so happen to get away from what caused the battle shock, but then they're put into a bad situation of something else, I think that's just the way the cookie crumbles with it. Uh,
I'm of the mind that okay, you got battle shocked and you have to move because that's really the key is you have to move. You'd probably rather not because in the ideal case that your guys are on the point, they're where they want to be, and now I have to move. It's like okay, well let me move them. Let me move them this way where they'll be out of everybody's sight, or let me move them. Oh, well, that would be the way actually, wouldn't it? Because
what, what
we forgot we've almost solved it. Guys, go play with new Battle Shock. Credit us in all of your social media posts about it. Let's see if we can fix this. We forgot what triggers the battle shock to end is getting your guys in cover.
Yeah.
Because if you just run them out into the open, you can do that, but then they're still going to be battle shocked next time. That's the key.
Mhm.
It's like no, these guys haven't gotten into a. I like the idea that there's no fixing it. How about that? Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
you have to go get in cover, which of course is in 10th edition. We're playing this in 10th edition. It's so easy to go find cover from whatever you want. That's the other thing. Well, no, has to be cover from say the nearest unit. Let's say. Got to get something between you and the nearest enemy, whether they shot you or not. How about that? Um,
I don't even know because I feel like I don't know. It depends on what, because you could have situations where you get like just some real crappy unit that you're kind of like pushing up to get in the way and trigger this stuff, and using the like little crappy cultists to make the custodies flee or something.
um, well, to make the custodies walk over into
Yeah,
the next house, at which point they would be back to normal, and then they'd come back out there and wreck shop.
I don't know. I feel like it's whatever's triggering it is where you have to try to get away from it. Because if you've got like uh, the Necron snipers shooting at a unit of Marines, they're probably going to try to get out of cover from the snipers and not necessarily worry about like the scarabs that are like nearby.
That's true. That's true. The problem that we get is then we end up having to, just for the sake of remembering who did what when, we end up having to take these battle shock tests like after shooting, after combats, right? They cease to take place at one. I mean, because this has been a pretty elegant part. Is okay, new turn, battle shock. Who needs it?
Hmm.
And then you're done. Whereas the way to do it, we're saying you'd have to take them as they come, which I guess wouldn't be the end of the world. Everybody and their
No.
brother got procured little battle shock tokens at the beginning of 10th edition because we all thought that battle shock is going to be something that we really needed to mark and keep track of who's battle shocked and who's not. And it turned out no, it only matters for about 15 seconds after they fail one, when they hardly ever fail one, and then potentially later in the turn, you're like, I want to use a strategy on them, and then your opponent's like, nah, they were battle shocked. Oh yeah, that's right. But then
Hmm.
even that's exceedingly rare.
Yeah.
Well, guys, tell us how you would solve the little problems that we came up with, because I want to say we got 90% there. It would also be hilarious to try to play with it and see how fast our idea just completely breaks down.
Isn't that the fun when designing a tabletop game is being like, oh yeah, I've got this great idea. We've thought about it for days, and it's
It's
like, okay, let's test
perfect.
it out, and it instantly fails. And it's like, oh well, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, yeah. That is funny. Well, tomorrow, as we record this, you and me and the wifey are going to be playing Planet of the Apes RPG, the role-playing game of the Planet of the Apes. Is that it?
Yes, that is it.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. And until
That's
next
be fun.
time, don't forget to
Stay fanatical.